My father slapped me across the face in front of 60 people. And when the sound faded, my brother started clapping. Then the rest of the room joined in. My name is Marcus Bennett. I'm 38 years old. I'm an architect. I live alone, at a lakeside cottage in the mountains with my dog, Rex. And until 2 months ago, I had spent the better part of a decade quietly drifting away from my family. One ignored birthday, one cutting comment, one unanswered message at a time. Thought I understood what they thought of me. I was wrong. I didn't know how far they were willing to go until the night my brother put me on a stage and my father hit me in front of everyone he'd ever wanted to impress. Before I tell you what happened, welcome to Anonymous Confessions, where real stories get told without the filter. If you're new here, subscribe and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Stay with me. Because what I found in my filing cabinet the morning after that slap changed everything. And I mean everything. The invitation arrived by email on a Thursday afternoon. Subject line, you're invited to the Bennett family legacy banquet. No greeting, no, hi Marcus. Just a block of text formatted like a corporate newsletter. Date, location, attire semi-formal, and a paragraph about celebrating the enduring strength of the Bennett name. I stared at it for a long time. Then I called my brother Tyler. He picked. Up on the second ring. Hey, you get the invite? Yeah, I said. Just wanted to make sure it wasn't a mistake. He chuckled the way he always did when he'd crossed a line, but figured charm would smooth it over. No, man, we had software do all the formatting. Your name probably just got swallowed up. Sure. Of course. Look, he added. It's going to be a great night. Everyone's flying in. Just be there, okay? I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell him. I could see straight through it, but something in me, the same part that had always held out hope, kept me quiet. Yeah, I said. I'll be there. That night I pulled down a cedar box from the top shelf of my closet. Inside was a hand-carved wooden model of the original Bennett family farmhouse, the one my father had gambled away in the 90s. I'd spent 6 months on it. Every window frame, every slat of the sagging back porch. I wrapped it carefully, in cloth, and placed it beside a folded quilt our grandmother had made when Tyler and I were still young enough to sleep under the same roof without tension. As I packed both items into the trunk of my car, I paused with my hand on the lid. I knew I was walking into something staged, something designed to exclude me. But a part of me, the part I should have put down years ago, still hoped. Just once, I wanted to walk into a room full of people who shared my last name and feel like I belonged there. Has anyone ever made you feel so unwelcome in your own family that just showing up felt like an act of courage? Tyler's house sat in one of those new developments outside the city. Big boxy homes with spotless driveways lined up like showpieces. Manicured lawn, coordinated patio furniture, a rented string quartet playing softly on the front porch as guests filed in. A woman in a black headset stood at a check-in table near the entrance. She gave me a practiced smile. Welcome. Name, please. Marcus Bennett. She tapped her tablet. Your guest number 19. She handed me a plastic badge with those exact words printed in bold across the front. Guest number 19. Inside, a photo timeline wrapped around the entire living room and continued into the hallway. At first glance, it looked like a family history project, except every photograph was of Tyler. Tyler as a baby, Tyler at his graduation, Tyler at his wedding, his children on vacation, his wife Serena holding a charity check, their holiday, cards enlarged and mounted like campaign posters. Not a single photograph of me. I stepped closer, searching for a group shot, a background detail, anything. Nothing. I might as well have never existed. Behind me, I heard a woman's voice. Is he a cousin? And another, maybe someone from Serena's side. No one greeted me. No one made eye contact. At the gift table, a teenager with gelled hair and an expensive watch sorted through the arrivals without looking up. He took my carefully wrapped cedar box and shoved it under the table skirt without a second glance. I opened my mouth, then closed it. What would I even say? I wandered through the rooms in a daze. Everyone looked like they belonged. Polished loafers, champagne flutes, compliments. About skincare, I stood there in my off-the-rack blazer with a sweating glass of ice water, invisible in a house full of people who shared my last name. In the far corner, Tyler posed for photographs in front of the Bennett legacy backdrop. One arm around our father, the other around his oldest child. Serena was already live-streaming it to her followers. I watched them smile like nothing was broken. Like I hadn't been erased. Then Tyler's voice crackled through the mic. "Everybody, can I get your attention?" The chatter slowed. Phones went up. A slideshow began on the projector screen, starting with a photograph of our great-grandfather, next to an old plow. Tyler stood at the podium, my parents flanking the legacy wall behind him. All smiles. "We're here tonight to honor the strength and values that built the Bennett name," he said. "Hard work, faith, family, and the kind of sacrifice that spans generations." He pointed to a photo of himself at his college graduation. "And, speaking of sacrifice, there's someone else I want to acknowledge. Marcus." He looked directly at me. "Come up here, man." It wasn't a request. I walked up to join him. My shoes felt heavy on the polished tile. My throat dried out completely. Tyler put his hand on my shoulder and leaned into the mic. "This guy right here, he's done well for himself. Built a quiet little life up in the mountains. Real modest. No kids, no wife, just him and his woodworking projects." Polite laughter from the crowd. He turned to face me. "But you know what? They say, legacy isn't about what you keep. It's about what you give." My stomach dropped. He looked back at the room, his voice swelling. "And that's why tonight we want to honor Marcus by officially asking him to donate his lakeside cottage to the Bennett Family Trust." A pause. Stunned silence. A few hesitant claps. I stared at him. "What?" "You don't have any heirs," he said, still smiling. "You're not using it for anything meaningful. It's the perfect retreat for future generations." Then my mother stepped forward, hands folded like she was offering grace. "Marcus, you have no legacy of your own." The room went dead silent. And then my father, red-faced, jaw tight, stepped up beside me and muttered low and sharp, "Don't be selfish. This family made you." When I didn't respond, when I didn't nod or smile or step toward the mic, he reached out and slapped me, an open palm strike across my face that echoed off the marble. I stood completely still. My cheek burned. Then Tyler started clapping, and then Serena. And then one by one, others joined. Awkward, mechanical, the sound of hands slapping together in a room where nobody was quite sure what they were applauding. But they clapped anyway. What? Do you call a room full of people who watch a man get struck and respond with applause? I didn't say a word. I walked off the stage, past the blinking phones, past Tyler still nodding like he'd made a brilliant point, past Serena whose camera had already moved on to someone else's reaction. I didn't stop for the wooden farmhouse model or the quilt. I walked straight out the front door. The night air was warm and humid. My cheek throbbed. By the time I reached my car, I was shaking, not from fear, but from that cold, contained fury that arrives after the shock burns off. Rex was in the passenger seat. He looked up at me with those patient, steady eyes. "Let's go home, buddy." We drove in silence. I didn't turn on the radio. When I got back to the cottage, I fed Rex, sat in my study, and pulled an old accordion folder from the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet. Inside, a paper trail I had kept for years without ever quite knowing why. Car repairs I'd covered for my father. Mortgage help I'd sent Tyler during a bad year. Utility bills from a time my mother claimed to be struggling. Nobody had ever paid me back. Not once, not $1. There were also the signed copies from a home renovation I had project managed for Tyler. my name on the paperwork, my card on the contractor files, and at the very bottom of the folder, the deed to the cottage. Title, surveyor's map, tax records, all in my name. Undisputed. I opened a new email and typed to my lawyer. Subject, family property protection, urgent. We need to talk. I'm done being quiet. I need to pause here. Because what I found the next morning is the part of this story that changes everything. If this is hitting close to home, if you've ever been the invisible one in your own family, subscribe to Anonymous Confessions and drop your story in the comments. Someone reading them tonight needs to know they're not alone. Now let me tell you what was hidden in that folder. The next morning, I brewed coffee, let Rex into the yard, and went through the property file more carefully. The deed was secure. My name, sole owner, no ambiguity. But something Tyler had said nagged at me. The way he'd announced the proposal, like it was already in motion. I flipped to the back of the folder, tucked between two copies of last year's. Property tax records was a scanned form I had never seen before. A transfer of ownership document, with my signature on it. I had never signed it. The handwriting was too clean, too upright. Mine always slants left. The loop on the capital M smaller. This was a forgery. I photographed it and sent it to my lawyer Martin with one line. Need to confirm if this was ever filed. Looks fake. Within the hour, he called. Marcus, that document was submitted to your bank 2 weeks ago. They didn't approve it yet because of a missing notarization stamp, but it's in their system. Someone tried to transfer the cottage into a family trust with Tyler listed as trustee. I closed my eyes. It gets worse, Martin said. We pulled recent credit checks attached to your mother's name. There are 4 open credit accounts tied to her social security number, none of which she could have opened herself. She has dementia. She hasn't been legally competent for over a year. Who opened them? 2 were submitted online from IP. Addresses matching Tyler's firm. 1 came from your father's business line. He paused. The 4th came from Serena's work laptop. I sat there with the cooling coffee beside me, processing what I was hearing. They hadn't just planned to humiliate me. They were trying to take everything. I opened a new folder on my desktop and started dropping files. The forged signature, the bank response letter, the video clip Laura had sent me, 20 seconds of footage showing the slap, the silence that followed, and Serena's cold, practiced applause. Copies of the fraudulent credit accounts, tax records I had paid on their behalf. The invitation with my name conspicuously absent from the greeting. It wasn't a family rift anymore. It was fraud. It was identity theft. It was the financial exploitation of a woman with dementia, and I had the paper trail to prove every word of it. By the end of the week, Martin had everything filed. A formal complaint went to the bank with a notarized affidavit and a handwriting analysis comparison. A second packet, screenshots, IP trace reports, application timestamps, went to the state attorney general citing identity theft and elder financial abuse. The IRS received its own bundle with a cover letter and a digital trail of unreported funds flowing through something called the Bennett Legacy Trust, which Tyler had apparently created 6 months ago. I also sent the video to a journalist I knew, a woman named Claire. She watched the footage once and said, "If I publish this, it's going to make waves." Good, I told her. Let it. The story ran the following Monday. Within hours it spread. By noon it was trending. Serena's social media, usually filled with brand partnerships and staged family moments, was flooded. Sponsors pulled out within days. Tyler posted a long-winded message about misunderstandings and emotional stress. Nobody bought it. I didn't respond to any of it. I didn't explain or justify or argue. I let the truth do the work. 3 weeks later, the subpoenas started landing. Tyler and my father were both served on the same afternoon, one at his office, the other in the driveway of his country club. Formal charges followed: property fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. The letter from Martin arrived by registered mail. I opened it at my desk with Rex asleep by the fire. Your property rights are secure. All pending transfers voided. Title locked. They'll never touch it again. You're clean. I folded the letter and set it on my desk. Then I walked out to the dock and stood there in the quiet. Just trees, just water, just the creak of old wood underfoot. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone clawing for a seat at someone else's table. I didn't want their table anymore. I had my own, and it was finally, completely mine. If this story reached something in you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it tonight. Subscribe to Anonymous Confessions so you never miss a story like this one. And if you have your own confession, your own version of being the invisible one, leave it in the comments. This community was built for exactly that kind of truth. My mother is now in a state-monitored care facility 20 minutes from the cottage, clean and quiet, with a lake view. I mailed her the quilt, the one I'd carried to the banquet, the one that never made it off the gift table. I boxed it carefully, wrote her name in thick black marker, and added a small note. For warmth, from someone who remembers. No return address. She might not know it's from me. But on one of her better days, maybe she'll recognize the stitching. I didn't need credit. I just needed her safe. Every other Saturday, I host a small group at the cottage. Men from around the region, most of them dealing with estrangement, inheritance disputes, or just the quiet grief of being the one who was never counted. We sit by the fire pit. No forced sharing, just coffee, stories, and the comfort of not having to explain why you walked away from people who still share your blood. This morning, I cleaned the dock and stacked firewood, caught my reflection in the kitchen window. Older than I used to look, maybe more worn, but calm, steady. At sunset, I sat on the dock with a mug in my hands and Rex at my feet, and I wrote one line in my notebook. I didn't destroy them. I just stopped letting them erase me, and honestly, that's where my story finally ends, and my life finally begins.